The hot air made Link continue to sweat, which he wiped off his forehead as he walked into the first room of the fire temple. It was a voluminous room about 40 feet high, with a grand stone staircase complete with balustrades and rail, flanked with mysterious totem poles, adorned with crazy faces etched with eternal smiles, seemingly paused in laughter. The stairs led Link up to some sort of altar, a wall also adorned with 3 instances of that wild face, their wide-open mouths carved out to hold lit torches so that fire blazed between their teeth. All of a sudden, there was a bang to his left, coming from the next room. A steel door stood between him and this room. The doorknob was hot to the touch, but Link needed to see if the noise had been Darunia. Sure enough, standing across a magma pit far below them, a pointy-headed muscular Goron had just opened a large sliding steel door, surely the source of the banging noise. "Darunia!" Link called.
"Who's there?"
He turned around, reclosing the door.
"Is that you, Link?"
"It's me, brother," Link shouted with joy.
"Oh, it really is Link. You've grown so big since I last saw you."
Link had just noticed that he never mentioned he was Kokiri. He wondered whether Darunia thought he was a Hylian boy anyway, especially since Link came under the pretense of the royal family.
"Now that you're a man, I want to have a man-to-man talk with you, but now's not the time."
"I met your son. He told me everything that's happened."
"Link met Link," Darunia playfully said. "You must be flattered."
"Now's not the time," Link repeated Darunia's words. "I hear our mutual friend paid you another visit." Darunia must have understood the sarcasm, because he said,
"Ganondorf is causing trouble on Death Mountain again. He has revived the evil ancient dragon Volvagia."
He seemed frustrated at this point.
"On top of that, he is going to feed my people to that evil dragon, as a warning to other races who might resist him."
"Or else yield to him and form an alliance, breaking the bond with your sworn brother, the king."
"Oh, he's out for anyone who might oppose him. He wanted our people to be his foot soldiers."
He spat into the magma, which surely evaporated it before it could even reach it.
"Needless to say, that was not an option. But I'm not letting my people go quietly either. With no Volvagia, there's no eating of my people."
Darunia pointed to the door he just opened.
"That's why I'm going to destroy him, like the legendary Goron before me. However, I don't have his hammer."
"Is the hammer in here? I can retrieve it for you." Link had a bad feeling that Darunia was going to face the dragon unequipped.
"If that fire-breathing dragon escapes from this chamber, he'll eat my people. If he escapes from the mountain, all of Hyrule will become a burning wasteland. I need to go now and try to seal up this dragon."
Link very much wanted Darunia to wait. If choosing to save his people himself was his way of being called to the temple, that would make Darunia the Sage of Fire, and if in order to be awakened as the Sage one must die, Link was fearful he would fall to Volvagia. "If I can't convince you otherwise..."
"I must think of my people."
He sounded just like he did when he said that to him 7 years ago. This type of heroism had to mean that he was to be awakened as the Sage of Fire. There was no changing his mind.
"Link, I'm asking you to do this as my sworn brother. While I'm trying to deal with the dragon, please go and free my people."
Link nodded, saying with sincerity, "I do hope to see you on the other side." Darunia smiled.
"I do too, brother."
With that, he reopened the door and disappeared on the other side. "I need to help him defeat Volvagia," Link said firmly. "But Link," Navi piped up, "how do you get over there?" Link was so eager to help Darunia, he didn't think about the deep pit of magma between him and the door Darunia entered. "Link, look above you. It appears to be a huge pillar stuck in the ceiling." A pillar of rock hung down from a large opening in the pumice ceiling it was lodged in, but it looked like there was far more to it above the hole. A giant shaft of rock that would fill the pit perfectly if it were to become loose. This would make sense, since Link was surely standing in one of the spectacle rocks, the left tower to be exact. "Let's go to the other tower to get up there and investigate," Navi suggested. "You think there's a connection higher up?" "There's only one way to find out," said Navi. "Besides, you promised Darunia you would find a way to free the rest of the Gorons. That must be where they're being held." So, he and Navi made their way over to the other side of the temple, through another steel door that led to another tall chamber. This chamber also held a pit of magma below, but unlike its twin chamber, its perimeter consisted of a winding helical platform carved into the rock. As Link started to make his way up, he saw that along the spiraling ramp, there were openings in the rock wall that lined the pathway, and they were all covered, blocked off by wrought iron bars. These must have all been prison cells. The first one Link came up on had a square copper button in the floor just adjacent, reminiscent of the one he found in Dodongo's cavern. He stepped on it, and the result was an immediate clanking of the wrought iron bars as they slid sideways on a track leading to the side of the cell, opening it up. Coming from the back of the cell, Link heard the unmistaken moaning of a Goron.
Are you releasing me? Am I free to go?
The Goron spoke highly and fluently, a far cry from the first time he met one. He answered, "Of course."
Hey, you're the Dodongo Slayer, aren't you? The little Hylian boy all grown up.
"That's me," Link said, shrugging his shoulders.
You must be here to bust the evil dragon now.
The Goron said with excitement in his beady eyes.
Hey, but first can you release all my brothers?
"Of course," Link repeated, smiling slightly.
Thanks, brother.
The Goron plopped down on his behind.
Legend has it that the hammer the hero used to defeat Volvagia is in one of the spectacle rocks.
The Goron then curled up and rolled out of the cell, out the way Link came. Link was given useful information by the prisoner. He decided this legendary hammer was too important to ignore. He would venture to the top of this tower to search for it there. Then he would make his way to the other tower to look there if he couldn't find it. Also to look for a way to dislodge that giant pillar in the ceiling. All the meanwhile, he would free the unjustly imprisoned Gorons from their cells. That was exactly what Link did, stepping on each of the buttons to open the cells and free the Gorons stowed away in there. There must have been at least 50 of those dreaded cells, some with 2 cellmates locked up, but by simply stepping on the buttons and briefly greeting the Gorons thanking him, it didn't take too long. As Link neared the top, he approached a single prison cell that stood alone. When he went to press the button, it was locked in place. Interestingly, it was not the standard copper, for it was a dark black.
The dancer fired the switch,
cried a Goronic voice from the cell. This one was curled up, shaking. He looked a little older, as he had a very rugged back. Perhaps he was an elder of the Goron Society. Important enough for better security, perhaps? Link was a little stumped about the locked button, and was especially stumped by what he had said. The dancer fired the switch. That statement was so random and out of nowhere. Since the Goron hadn't seen him, Link didn't respond, and continued on to investigate the button that wouldn't press. He found another steel door next to the cell, so he went in to take a peek. It was a torchlit room with a round vaulted ceiling, surely forming the platform he and Sheik stood atop. But it was what was in the middle of the chamber that Link couldn't believe he saw. It was a frightening figure engulfed in flames. It was tall and slender as a twig, with a tunic of fire draped over its off-putting physique like a woolen blanket. Its head was just an orange flame, and complementing it were matching orange flames at the ends of its unnaturally long arms and legs. Link suddenly understood what the old Goron was saying. The figure started to twirl, and gracefully skated around the small room, spraying fire at its wake. "A flare dancer," Navi said. "Extinguish its flaming clothes first." Link's mind raced, trying to think of a way to extinguish this fiend. There was no way Link was getting near it, that was for sure. So he decided to go long range, and whipped out his trusty bow, nailing it in the flare dancer's torso with an arrow. Nothing happened. It continued to flaunt its deadly grace as it pirouetted, flames spraying radially from it, forcing Link to dance himself to avoid the hot fireballs. He fired again. This time, though, it missed, just by its shoulder. The flaming sleeve on that shoulder disappeared in a whoosh. The whiff of air it brought with it was a way to extinguish its fiery garb. The key was not to hit the target, but just miss it. Link went to work, pushing his recently acquired marksman archery skills to the limit with this unorthodox criterion. Soon, the tall dancer was stripped naked, its long limbs fading away until its torso remained, even that shriveled, curling up, almost like a Goron. The small, furled body fell to the floor like a rock, with nothing left to support it. It was black as soot, which made sense since its fire tunic singed it in all likelihood. Startling Link, it uncurled, unfolding unexpected arms and legs, and picking its tiny body up to start running. It began to run around the room, as a last defense. In a circle it ran, away from Link. Quite unintelligently, though, the circle led back into Link. Realizing this, the creature skidded on its heels, scuffing to turn the other way, to run in a circle in the other direction. Link waited. Again, it ran straight into him, but this time Link had his sword drawn, ready to slash the thing. It collapsed, just before letting off an explosive poof. The dancer fired the switch, Link said, repeating the old Goron. This thing burnt the button solid. Fear not, Link, Navi responded. If you can find the legendary Goron hammer, I bet you could press the switch down with force. Link was both responding to Navi's idea and to something he noticed on the ground, where the shadow of the flare dancer exploded. He stepped over to it. It was a shiny silver object gleaming in the light of the torches in the room. Link picked it up. It was a two-pronged key with an inscription, but upon closer inspection, the writing was in some sort of glyph. You can't read the inscription, Navi blurted. That's an old Goronic writing. Link took it back through the door he came in. He had an idea. Walking up to the cell with the cowering Goron, he murmured, excuse me. The Goron moaned and showed his unequivocally elderly status as he struggled to stand up.
Oh, if it isn't the Tungle Slayer, all grown up, come to save us from another resurrected menace.
Link smiled a little bit. The, dancer is no more.
Thank you, brother. The thing scared the living rock out of me.
Link concurred on the scariness of the monster. He lifted up the key the thing had just dropped. It left this behind. The old Goron reached between the bars and took it, twirling it in his rocky fingers as he examined it.
Do you know what this says, boy?
This was Link's idea. I was hoping you could tell me.
It says, my Megaton hammer is here, in case it is needed. This belonged to the great hero of the Gorons. I don't know why that thing had it.
Me neither, Link replied, wondering. Thank you. I'm going to get you out of here, with that hammer.
Boy,
the elderly Goron shouted as Link began to walk away.
You'll need that to destroy the dragon, not to free an old bat like me.
I'll do both, don't worry. Link was headed towards the top of the tower. Continuing on the corkscrew path past the steel door, he was able to do so, the gap in the center shrinking slightly with each lap around. The path also grew narrower and narrower. It all came to a head when the path finally ended, ceasing to rise and instead opening to a platform forming a ring around the central pit of the magma, which was now very far below at this point. To Link's satisfaction, there sat a wooden chest, lined with riveted wrought iron along the edges. A lock in the center latched the chest closed. Link inserted the glimmering silver key into the keyhole on the wrought iron padlock. The click was that much more satisfying, as the lock released its hold on the lid, and the thing swung open with ease. Inside was a beautiful item, a short battle hammer with a shimmering chromatic shaft, a nicely gripped leather hilt, and a shiny steel ball-peen head the size of a melon fused to the handle. Link carefully picked it up, a specimen of antiquity, that somehow had managed to stay brand new looking. He expected it to be heavier than it was. The head was a lightweight mass, but still provided plenty of momentum when he practiced swinging it. The Megaton Hammer, Navi proclaimed. The weapon used to dismantle the evil dragon in the Goron legend. It is real. Link was en route now. He made his way back down to the old Goron cell. The swing of the mallet to the button on the ground seemed effortless, but everything around rumbled as the head made impact. It was enough to force the switch down, freeing the last Goron in the tower. After he was thanked, Link re-entered the room where he battled the flare dancer. On the other side was yet another steel door, which opened up to the mirror image of the previous tower chamber. But in this other spectacle rock, the central pit was clogged by a shaft, identical to the one hanging in the ceiling where he saw Darunia. This is it, Link excitedly pointed out to Navi. He spiraled his way up to the top. Instead of a rewarding chest, this time Link was met with a swarm of flaming bats, Keese as Navi called them. Unfazed by the risk of severe burns as they came at him, Link swung his new weapon about, pummeling them out of the air like they were gnats. I love this thing, he said aloud. Link went on a miniature rampage, smashing with the hammer every last Keese that had fallen to the ground. What Link didn't realize was the floor had sunk down about an inch, every slam of his hammer crumbling the edges of the rock that were jammed around the outer confines of the rim. The last slam Link made the hardest. Link! Navi shouted. He may have been having a little too much fun. The platform is unstable. Link momentarily forgot all about the shaft, which was all of a sudden falling. accelerating down into the pit of magma that separated him from Darunia. The tall piece of rock must have been cushioned by the soft molten rock at the bottom, because Link decelerated slowly, gently moving downward until the platform became even with the other ledges. The pillar leaned towards the sliding metal door Darunia had gone into. Right, Link said to Navi, clearing his throat. He shoved the creaking door open with a bang. The pungent air wafting out was the hottest he had felt. After a slight hesitation, he entered, holding the megaton hammer by his side. There was a staircase, one that led straight down, through a tight passage. After a long flight down, the passage opened up to a dim chamber, which was filled at the bottom with a pool of more of that glowing magma. This time, the pit was a relatively shallow drop, and Link could really feel the heat radiating off of it. The room was a vast, cavernous space with a domical ceiling, and just a single ledge for him to stand on. There were perforations in this ledge, large ones the size of a tree trunk, perhaps volcanic vents. Darunia! Link looked around for him. He was nowhere in sight, and there was no response except the echo of his call. Link teared up at the thought of his fear being vindicated. He began to wallow in the fact that he knew this was going to happen. Why? Why did it still happen? The ledge he was standing on shook. With his concern of Darunia's safety, he wasn't thinking about his own safety when he bellowed that out. The subterranean lava dragon emerged from one of the vents, blasting out flames from a mystically charged orange mane that flowed vivaciously down his red scaly serpentine body. He slithered up out of the hole, floating through the air as if he were underwater, flying about without any sort of wings. A set of forearms revealed themselves midway down his torso, and they were armed with large talons, ready to snatch up his prey. Link was his prey now, as the creature circled around to head back down towards him. Volvagia's snout of a face was adorned with a ram-horned armored helm, which was incorporated into the layer of scales down his protruding jaw. His jaw was set downward, with fangs in the front and back, set on devouring Link. Link clutched the megaton hammer, raising it above his head. He swung the mallet swiftly in a downward motion across his body, dealing a crushing blow to the head of the beast. Volvagia twirled in midair, falling to the volcanic dirt. The dragon lay there, motionless, but alive. Link ran over to try and deal some more damage. He slammed the megaton hammer down, only to find the ground beneath it. Volvagia had recovered, shaking it off and slithering down one of the vents. Link waited, panting heavily in the immense heat of the magma chamber, his eyes darting from hole to hole. Finally, like a worm, the dragon emerged from the hole furthest from him. Link sprinted over, but the tip of Volvagia's red tail was up and out already, trailing the serpent up and up, all the way to the domed ceiling. The dragon had butted the ceiling, causing a surprisingly powerful thud. He circled and did that over and over, angrily banging the top of the dome, quaking the entire chamber with each blow. Finally, a crack formed, and the entire ceiling began to crumble, which developed into a full-blown cave-in. Chunks of rock fell down into the magma pit, seemingly in slow motion just from how high they fell from. Accompanying them was a downpour of more red-hot magma from above the ceiling. "Link!" Navi cried. "We're beneath Death Mountain crater!" The magma flowing in must have been from the bottom of the main volcanic chamber. Link had ventured considerably far down. The cave-in had created a hole big enough for a wide clearing. Volvagia had created a way he could escape. The pool of magma was filling up, and making the air temperature nearly unbearable. Now was the time to act. Link took his bow, and fired an arrow off toward Volvagia, who had been circling the perimeter, avoiding the debris of the collapse. It didn't matter if it hit, because surely his scales were too tough to pierce. Link just needed the beast to come back to him. He resecured the bow on his back, and tucked the hammer safely under his tunic belt. Volvagia swooped over Link, who flopped over, and was swept up into the great talons of the dragon. Link was soaring over the room. Up and up Volvagia took him, right through the penetration the dragon created. All of a sudden, it was vastly more open, and slightly better air conditions. They were in the volcano proper now, Death Mountain crater. Link caught a glimpse of the gray sky with a pale rain cloud and remembered what Darunia said. If he escapes from the mountain, all of Hyrule will become a burning wasteland. Link had made sure one of his arms was free. He pulled the hammer from his belt and waited. When they were flying just over the top of the temple, he whacked the talon grasping his chest, which made Volvagia release him, dropping him from a modest height onto the platform. Link rolled out his momentum all the way to the edge, where he had to dig his fingernails into the texture of the rock just to not fall off. Once he got himself up, he gathered himself. Somehow, his knapsack, bow, quiver, master sword, Hylian shield, and even hat all stayed on his person. The megaton hammer he had dropped on the platform as he was rolling. Meanwhile, Volvagia was on the other side of the platform as well, furious as he let out a mighty roar. Link mustered all his strength, like he had done plenty of times before, clambering over to him, picking up the megaton hammer along the way. He leapt at the dragon's head, bringing down the mallet with all its power. The collision reverberated around the whole volcano, it felt like. The crushing noise beneath the steel had signaled the crushing of the beast's skull. Exhausted, Link lifted it up. The creature was still, and the sight of what was left of the dragon's head made Link queasy and lightheaded. Buckling his knees, he hit the ground, only to immediately wake up to the field of white light greeting him in the Chamber of Sages. As Link was getting up, he received a heavy-handed slap on the back.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate what you did. I thank you on behalf of the entire Goron race.
Link sighed. Darunia.
Don't pity me, brother, he interrupted. I, the wild Darunia, turned out to be the great sage of fire, and I join my fellow sages with pride.
With his hands, he gestured towards Rauru and Saria behind him. Well, this must be what they call destiny, Link said somberly, but with acceptance.
You turned out to be a real man, just as I thought you would, Darunia continued. Nothing has made me happier than helping you seal the evil here.
Link couldn't help but smile. You know what, Darunia? Me too.
My power as a sage will always be helping you. All of ours will.
Link was in a state of euphoria as the white glow began to fade.
Don't forget, now you and I are true brothers.
The last sight of Rauru, Saria, and Darunia etched itself into his memory as the dreamlike state passed, and he woke in Darunia's chamber, on a makeshift bed of anything soft the Gorons could pull together. There was a pot of water beside it that Link gulped down, quenching his immense thirst from his dehydration and heat exhaustion. Sitting beside him was Link the Goron. Immediately, Link embraced his rocky brother who shared his name. With overwhelming sympathy, Link told him what happened. Darunia's son actually smiled a little bit, waving it off. He took Link to the main hall to show him something. They made their way to the top. All the Gorons were back populating their settlement, and Goron City felt alive once again. Link the Goron first showed Link the painting of Volvagia. Now, there was a Hylian man painted. A green tunic-garbed, blonde-haired, Phrygian-hatted Hylian grasped in the talons of the dragon, swinging a silver hammer at the beast. Link was honored once again, but it was what was below it on the wall that made Link shed a tear. The Gorons had begun a carving in the wall, a stoic Goron face, with 3 spikes of hair being carved behind him. Darunia had never left them, and never will.